The rain hammered against the observation deck windows of mining station Kepler 442b with relentless fury. Marcus Chen pulled his maintenance supervisor jacket tighter around his shoulders as he made his final rounds of the night shift. The weather had been brutal for 3 standard days now, with atmospheric processors working overtime to maintain breathable conditions for the human crew of 47. Outside in the alien darkness, something moved. Marcus paused, pressing his face against the reinforced polymer window. The motion sensors should have picked up anything larger than a maintenance drone, but the display showed green across all sectors. He squinted through the driving rain, watching for another sign of movement among the towering crystalline formations that dotted the planet's surface. There it was again. A massive shape, easily 30 meters long, moving with an odd, hesitant gait between the crystal spires. The creature's scales reflected the station's external floodlights in an oily, iridescent pattern that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. But something was wrong with the way it moved, constantly stopping, turning its enormous head left and right as if searching for something it couldn't find. Marcus activated his communicator. "Control, this is Chen. I've got a large xenobiological contact, Sector 7, requesting immediate backup and containment protocols." The response crackled through static. "Negative on containment, Marcus. Dr. Yates identified that species last week. Draconis magnificus, according to her files. They're non-hostile herbivores, but they're also critically endangered. Corporate directive is hands-off unless it poses immediate threat to station operations." Marcus watched the creature stumble against one of the crystal formations, its head swinging wildly. "Control, I think this one's in distress. It's moving like it's lost or injured. Maintain observation only. Yates is off shift until 0800. Can you handle monitoring until then?" The creature let out a low, haunting cry that vibrated through the station's hull. The sound was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard, a deep melodic wail that seemed to carry both pain and confusion. Several crew members in the nearby recreation area stopped their conversations, looking around with concern. "Yeah, I can handle it," Marcus replied, though he wasn't sure that was entirely true. For the next 2 hours, Marcus watched the magnificent creature struggle through the storm. It was clearly a dragon-like being, with 6 powerful legs, gossamer wings that sparkled even in the dim light, and a serpentine neck that curved gracefully despite its obvious distress. But as Marcus observed more carefully, he began to notice disturbing details. The dragon's eyes, large and multifaceted like a dragonfly's, remained completely still. No matter which direction the creature turned, those beautiful rainbow-colored orbs never tracked movement, never focused on anything specific. When the dragon's head swayed from side to side, it wasn't searching with its eyes. It was listening, scenting, feeling for vibrations through its feet. The creature was completely blind. Marcus had seen enough injured animals during his childhood on the agricultural colonies to recognize the signs. The dragon moved with the careful testing steps of something that had lost its primary sense and was struggling to adapt. Worse, it seemed to be moving in circles, probably following its own scent trail and becoming increasingly disoriented. During his 3rd hour of observation, the situation became critical. The dragon had wandered into a section of the valley where the crystal formations created a natural maze. The creature's increasingly frantic calls echoed off the crystalline walls, creating a confusing auditory environment that seemed to panic the already stressed animal. Marcus watched in horror as the dragon crashed into formation after formation. Its iridescent scales now showing dark patches where crystal edges had scraped away the protective coating. Bright blue fluid, probably the creature's equivalent of blood, began to seep from multiple wounds. "Control. The xenobiological is now injured and showing signs of severe distress. I'm requesting permission to intervene." "Negative, Chen. Maintain observation only. Any interference with endangered species requires Xenobiology Department approval. The Xenobiology Department is one person, and she's asleep. This creature is going to seriously injure itself or die if someone doesn't help it. Sorry, Marcus, but corporate liability is clear on this. No intervention without proper authorization. Marcus stared out at the struggling dragon, watching it slam into another crystal formation. The creature's cries had become weaker, more desperate. It was exhausting itself, and in this storm, hypothermia was becoming a real possibility despite its apparent warm-blooded metabolism. Humanity had spread across 17 star systems in the past century, establishing mining operations, research stations, and colonial settlements on dozens of worlds. They had developed faster-than-light communication, mastered fusion power, and created artificial intelligence systems that could run entire space stations. But sometimes, Marcus reflected, the most important human trait wasn't advanced technology or corporate efficiency. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to help when help was needed. Marcus grabbed his emergency environmental suit from the maintenance locker and began the activation sequence. The suit was designed for external repairs in hostile conditions, rated for the crushing atmospheric pressure and toxic gases of Kepler 442b's surface. More importantly, it had heavy-duty tools and emergency medical supplies. Control. I'm suiting up for external maintenance check on the atmospheric processors. Severe storm damage possible in Sector 7. Roger that, Marcus. Be careful out there. Estimated EVA time? 2 hours, maybe 3 if the damage is extensive. Marcus felt a twinge of guilt about the deception, but corporate policy was clear. Equipment maintenance took priority over almost everything else. If he happened to encounter a distressed xenobiological creature while performing his duties, well, any reasonable supervisor would take appropriate action to prevent further damage to station assets. The airlock cycle seemed to take forever. Marcus checked and double-checked his suit systems, emergency oxygen supply, and the compact medical kit he'd borrowed from the human infirmary. The kit wasn't designed for alien physiology, but pain relief was pain relief, and antiseptic compounds usually worked across species boundaries. When the outer door finally opened, the storm hit him like a physical blow. Even through the suit's environmental systems, he could feel the brutal wind trying to knock him off his feet. The rain hammered against his visor with enough force to create a constant drumming sound that made communication with the station nearly impossible. Marcus activated his suit's external lights and began making his way toward Sector 7. The terrain was treacherous, with loose gravel and puddles of accumulated rainwater creating hazardous footing. Several times he had to grab onto crystal formations for support as wind gusts threatened to send him tumbling into ravines carved by centuries of erosion. The dragon's cries grew louder as he approached, but also weaker. The creature was definitely exhausting itself, and Marcus could now see that it had managed to wedge itself between 2 large crystal spires. Its powerful legs were scrabbling for purchase on the slippery rock, but it couldn't seem to find the right angle to extract itself from the narrow gap. Marcus approached slowly, making as much noise as possible. The last thing he wanted was to startle an already panicked animal that weighed several tons and possessed claws longer than his forearm. "Easy there, big fellow," he called out, though he doubted the creature could hear him over the storm. "I'm here to help." The dragon's head swung toward him, and for the first time Marcus got a clear look at those magnificent eyes. They were indeed damaged, clouded over with what looked like scar tissue from some old injury or disease, but the creature's other senses were clearly acute. Its nostrils flared as it caught his scent, and its head tilted slightly as it processed the sounds of his approach. Marcus activated his suit's translation software, hoping it might pick up some communication patterns from the creature's vocalizations. The system had been designed to help human crews work with the various alien species they encountered in their expansion across the galaxy, though most of those species were significantly more technologically advanced than this apparently primitive dragon. To his surprise, the translation matrix immediately began showing probability matches. The dragon wasn't just making random sounds, it was actually attempting to communicate. The system identified patterns consistent with distress calls, requests for assistance, and what appeared to be gratitude responses. "Well, I'll be damned," Marcus muttered, staring at the readout. "You're actually trying to talk to me, aren't you?" The dragon's next vocalization translated roughly as "help trapped scared pain," though the software noted significant uncertainty in the interpretation. Marcus moved closer, keeping his hands visible and movements slow. "All right, let's see what we can do here." The situation was worse than he had initially thought. The dragon hadn't just wedged itself between the crystal formations. It had somehow managed to get one of its wings tangled in a complex network of sharp crystal growths. The gossamer wing membrane was torn in several places, and the supporting bone structure appeared to be caught in a way that any movement would cause additional damage. Marcus spent several minutes studying the problem from different angles, using his suit's external cameras to record everything for later analysis. The dragon seemed to understand that he was trying to help, remaining as still as possible despite its obvious discomfort. The solution, when he found it, was elegantly simple. The crystal growths were beautiful but fragile, designed by millions of years of evolution to channel wind and rain in specific patterns. Marcus used his suit's cutting tools to carefully remove 3 key crystal formations, creating a clear path for the dragon to extract its wing without further injury. The process took nearly an hour of delicate work, with Marcus constantly monitoring the dragon's stress levels through his translation software. The creature remained remarkably patient, occasionally offering what the system interpreted as encouragement or gratitude. When the last crystal obstruction was removed, the dragon carefully flexed its wing, testing the range of movement. The tears in the membrane would heal, Marcus realized, and the bone structure appeared undamaged. With slow, deliberate movements, the creature extracted itself from the narrow gap between the spires. For a moment, human and dragon regarded each other through the driving rain. Marcus found himself looking into those beautiful, sightless eyes and seeing an intelligence that had been shaped by entirely different evolutionary pressures than his own, but which was unmistakably present. The dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with Marcus's helmet, and made a complex series of sounds that the translation system interpreted as "gratitude, deep thanks, remember always, friend human." Marcus reached out slowly and placed one gloved hand against the creature's snout. The scales were warm even through his suit's environmental protection, and he could feel the dragon's breathing, strong and steady now that it was free from its crystalline prison. "You're welcome, big guy," he said softly. "Try to stay out of trouble, okay?" The dragon made what sounded almost like laughter before turning and moving carefully away from the crystal maze. Marcus watched it go, noting how it tested each step carefully but moved with increasing confidence as it found its way to clearer ground. As Marcus made his way back to the station, he reflected on what had just happened. Humanity's expansion into space had been driven largely by corporate interests, resource extraction, and the endless human need to explore and colonize. But sometimes, in moments like this, Marcus remembered why humans had been successful in building relationships with dozens of alien species across multiple star systems. It wasn't their technology or their military might or their economic systems. It was their willingness to help, even when there was no benefit to themselves, even when corporate policy said to stay uninvolved. The storm was beginning to clear as Marcus reached the station airlock. Through breaks in the clouds, he could see the first hints of dawn light painting the crystal formations in brilliant colors. Somewhere out there, A blind dragon was making its way home, guided by senses humans barely understood, but no longer entirely alone in the universe. Marcus smiled as he began the decontamination cycle. It had been a good night's work. Dr. Elena Yates arrived at the station's observation deck at 0847, already irritated about being called in early from her scheduled rest period. As the sole xenobiologist assigned to mining station Kepler 442b, she was responsible for cataloging and monitoring the local ecosystem to ensure corporate mining operations didn't violate galactic ecological protection treaties. It was important work, but it rarely required emergency consultations. "Show me what's so urgent that it couldn't wait until my normal shift," she said to Marcus Chen, who was waiting for her with a tablet full of recorded footage and what appeared to be several hours' worth of detailed notes. Marcus activated the first video file. "Last night during the storm, I observed a Draconus magnificus in severe distress. The creature was blind, trapped, and injuring itself against the crystal formations in Sector 7. Elena's expression immediately shifted from irritation to professional concern as she watched the footage of the struggling dragon. "This is remarkable documentation, but according to protocol, you should have maintained observation distance and contacted me immediately." "I tried. Control said you were off shift until 800 and that I should monitor only." Marcus advanced to the next video file. "The situation became critical around 200 hours. The creature was trapped and bleeding." Elena watched the footage of Marcus suiting up and heading into the storm. Her frown deepened. "You went outside during a Class 4 atmospheric disturbance to interact with an unknown xenobiological specimen?" "Marcus, that's not just against protocol, it's potentially suicidal." "Unknown specimen?" Marcus paused the video at a frame showing the dragon's scarred eyes clearly. "Elena, this creature was trying to communicate. My suit's translation matrix picked up complex linguistic patterns. This isn't some primitive animal. It's a sentient being that was suffering and needed help." Elena studied the frozen image more carefully. The dragon's eyes showed evidence of severe damage, probably from some kind of chemical burn or viral infection. The scarring was old, indicating the blindness had been a long-term condition rather than a recent injury. "Play the rest," she said quietly. For the next hour, Elena watched Marcus's careful rescue of the trapped dragon. Her expression gradually changed from professional disapproval to fascination as she observed the creature's clear attempts at communication, its patience during the rescue process, and its obvious gratitude afterward. "The translation matrix confidence levels are remarkably high," she murmured, studying the linguistic analysis data. "These aren't just random vocalizations. The syntax patterns suggest a sophisticated communication system, possibly even more complex than our current models can fully interpret." Marcus nodded. "That's what I thought. Elena, I think we've been classifying these creatures incorrectly. They're not just highly intelligent animals, they're people." Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring at the final frame of footage showing the dragon carefully testing its way across the clearer ground, moving with the deliberate caution of someone who had learned to navigate the world without sight, but with dignity intact. "If you're right," she said finally, "then everything changes. Our mining operations, our presence on this planet, all of it would need to be re-evaluated under galactic sentient species protection protocols." The implications were staggering. Kepler 442b had been classified as a Class 7 world, inhabited by complex life forms but no sentient species. That classification allowed for extensive resource extraction as long as ecological damage remained within acceptable parameters. But if the dragons were sentient, the planet would be reclassified as a Class 2 world, requiring consent agreements with the native population before any industrial activity could continue. "There's more," Marcus said, pulling up another data file. After I returned to the station, I analyzed the atmospheric sensor data from the past 6 months. The dragons have been changing their migration patterns, avoiding areas where our mining operations are most active. That's not instinctual animal behavior. That's intelligent adaptation to human presence. Elena studied the migration data with growing excitement and concern. The pattern was clear once someone knew what to look for. The dragon population had been systematically altering routes that had been stable for centuries, creating new paths that minimized contact with human industrial activity while maintaining access to their traditional feeding and nesting grounds. "They've been trying to avoid conflict with us," she breathed. "These creatures have been sharing their planet with human industrial operations for 8 months, and they've been actively working to prevent confrontations." Marcus activated the station's long-range communication system. "Elena, we need to contact the Galactic Ecological Survey immediately. This changes everything." "Wait." Elena held up a hand. "Before we make any official reports, we need more data. One interaction with a single individual isn't enough to reclassify an entire species. We need to document communication patterns, social structures, evidence of technology or culture." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "How do we do that without risking more contact situations? If these creatures are sentient, we can't just observe them like animals in a zoo." Elena was quiet for several minutes, working through the implications. Standard first contact protocols required extensive preparation, linguistic analysis, cultural assessment, and approval from multiple Galactic Council departments. The process typically took years of careful study before direct communication was attempted, but they were already past first contact. Marcus's interaction with the injured dragon had created an unprecedented situation, and Elena realized they needed to approach it with unprecedented solutions. "We try something that's never been done before," she said finally. "We attempt formal communication." Over the next week, Elena and Marcus developed what they privately called the Dragon Communication Project. Using Marcus's rescue footage as a baseline, they programmed the station's translation matrix with every recorded dragon vocalization they could find in the mining survey archives. The computer system began identifying increasingly complex patterns in what had previously been dismissed as animal sounds. The breakthrough came when Elena realized the dragons weren't just using vocal communication. Analysis of Marcus's suit sensor data revealed that the creatures were also using subsonic vibrations, electromagnetic field variations, and even subtle changes in their bioluminescent scale patterns to convey information. "It's like they have 4 different communication channels operating simultaneously," Elena explained to Marcus as they reviewed the latest analysis. "Vocal sounds for immediate emotional content, subsonic vibrations for location and identity information, electromagnetic fields for complex abstract concepts, and bioluminescent patterns for emphasis and clarification." Marcus stared at the data display. No wonder our initial contact attempts with other dragon species on different worlds failed. We were only picking up 25% of what they were actually saying. Elena nodded grimly. "And they were probably picking up 100% of what we were saying, plus everything we weren't saying. Our emotional states, our intentions, our level of technological development. Marcus, these creatures might be significantly more advanced than we initially assumed." The communication project's first major test came 12 days after Marcus's rescue of the blind dragon. Long-range sensors detected a group of 3 dragons approaching the mining station, moving with clear intentionality, rather than following normal migration patterns. "They're coming here," Marcus said, watching the sensor display with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Elena, I think they want to talk." Elena activated the station's external communication array, broadcasting a carefully constructed message using the linguistic patterns they had identified from Marcus's rescue footage. The message was simple. "Human station acknowledges dragon approach. Human intentions peaceful. Request communication permission." The response was immediate and overwhelming. All three approaching dragons began vocalizing simultaneously, their combined communication creating a complex harmonic pattern that the translation matrix struggled to process. Gradually, individual voices emerged from the chorus. The lead dragon was identifying itself as something the translation matrix rendered as Elder Speaks for Many Silver Wing Clan. The second voice belonged to Healer Tends the Broken Star Eye Clan. The third voice, smaller and younger sounding, was Student Remembers Kindness New Wing Clan. Elena felt her heart racing as she realized what she was hearing. Marcus, they have names, individual identities, clan structures, social roles. This is definitely a sentient species. Marcus was staring at the third dragon's translated designation. Student Remembers Kindness. Elena, I think that's the dragon I rescued. It came back and it brought help. The communication session lasted for 3 hours. Using the newly enhanced translation protocols, Elena and Marcus learned that the dragons called their world Harmony of Crystal Wines, and had been aware of human presence since the first survey ships arrived in the system 18 months earlier. The dragons had been studying human behavior, learning human languages, and attempting to develop communication protocols of their own. They had identified Marcus specifically as the Helper in Storm, and wanted to establish formal contact to discuss what they called the sharing of worlds. Elder Speaks for Many explained that the dragon communities had been debating human presence for months. Some clans wanted to drive the humans away, viewing them as destructive invaders. Others wanted to hide deeper in the planet's wilderness areas, avoiding contact entirely. But a growing number of dragons believed that peaceful coexistence was possible if communication could be established. The Helper in Storm showed kindness to Lost in Darkness, the Elder explained, referring to the blind dragon Marcus had rescued. This action speaks of human hearts that can choose compassion over indifference. Our councils wish to learn if this compassion is shared by other humans. Elena found herself in the unprecedented position of serving as humanity's first ambassador to a newly discovered sentient species. The dragons were offering a chance for peaceful cooperation, but they were also making it clear that continued human presence on their world required their consent. Our people seek to learn about your people, Elena responded carefully. We wish to understand your needs, your customs, your relationship with this world. Perhaps our species can find ways to benefit each other. Healer Tends the Broken provided the most surprising information of the session. The dragons had been observing human medical and technological capabilities and were interested in potential exchanges. The dragon's own healing techniques, based on bioelectric field manipulation and crystalline energy focusing, might be applicable to human medicine. In return, human technology might offer solutions to problems that had plagued dragon society for generations. Lost in Darkness and others like her suffer from the dimming sickness, the healer explained. Our traditional treatments can slow the progression, but cannot restore sight once lost. Perhaps human knowledge of light and healing might offer new hope. Marcus leaned forward. We might be able to help. Our medical technology includes options for vision restoration, neural interface systems, even cybernetic implants that could provide artificial sight. Student Remembers Kindness, the blind dragon Marcus had rescued, spoke for the first time during the session. The Helper in Storm has already given this one a new kind of sight, she said. The knowledge that kindness exists beyond the boundaries of clan and species. This is a gift more precious than the ability to see crystal light. As the communication session concluded, both species had agreed to continue regular contact, while representatives from both human and dragon communities considered the implications of formal diplomatic relations. Elena knew she would need to contact Galactic Council authorities within the next few days, but for now, she was content to savor the historical significance of what had just occurred. Two species from different evolutionary paths, different planets, different understandings of reality had managed to find common ground in the most unlikely circumstances. A human maintenance supervisor who chose compassion over protocol, and a blind dragon who chose trust over fear, had opened a door that might lead to a partnership unlike anything in known galactic history. Marcus stood at the observation deck window, watching the three dragons move gracefully across the crystal formations in the afternoon light. Their scales caught and reflected the sunlight in patterns that were now clearly recognizable as a form of long-distance communication, probably alerting other dragon communities about the successful first contact. "Elena," he said quietly, "I think we just changed the course of human expansion in this sector of the galaxy." Elena nodded, already composing her report to the Galactic Ecological Survey in her mind. "And they changed us too, Marcus. They showed us that intelligence and wisdom aren't the same thing, and that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when we're brave enough to reach out our hand to someone who needs help." Outside, Student Remembers Kindness turned toward the station and made a complex pattern of sounds that the translation matrix interpreted as, "Until we speak again, helper in storm. The memory of kindness burns bright in the darkness." Marcus pressed his hand against the window glass in response, knowing that she couldn't see the gesture but hoping that her other senses might detect the warmth and good intention behind it. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the crystal formations, but this time it sounded like applause. 6 months after first contact, mining station Kepler 442b had been transformed into something unprecedented in human space exploration, a joint diplomatic and research facility shared by two completely different sentient species. The morning Marcus Chen entered what was now officially called the Interspecies Communication Center, he found Student Remembers Kindness waiting for him with what had become their daily routine. "Good morning, Aylin," Marcus said, using the human pronounceable name she had chosen for herself during the early days of formal contact. The translation between Student Remembers Kindness and the shorter Aylin had been her own suggestion, a bridge between dragon complexity and human practicality. Aylin's response came through the sophisticated translation and communication system that now filled an entire section of the station. Her vocalizations were simultaneously converted to human speech, while subsonic and electromagnetic components were displayed as text and visual patterns on multiple screens. "Morning brightness to you, Marcus Helper in Storm," she replied, using the formal greeting pattern that had evolved between their species. "Today brings interesting developments from the healing councils." Marcus smiled as he settled into the workstation that had been designed specifically for human-dragon collaboration. The furniture looked strange to most human visitors, built to accommodate both bipedal humans and hexapedal dragons, with surfaces at multiple heights and communication interfaces that could handle both species' interaction preferences. "Dr. Martinez is very excited about the results from the vision restoration prototype," Marcus said, pulling up the latest medical data on his screens. "The bioelectric field interface is working better than anyone expected." Over the past months, the collaboration between human technology and dragon biohealing techniques had produced remarkable results. Dr. Sofia Martinez, the medical specialist who had been assigned to the station after first contact, had been working with Healer Tens the Broken to develop a revolutionary treatment for the dimming sickness that afflicted many dragons. The treatment combined human cybernetic technology with dragon bioelectric field manipulation to create a hybrid solution that neither species could have developed alone. The cybernetic components provided direct neural interface capabilities, while the dragon techniques enhanced the neural integration and reduced rejection responses. Aylin had volunteered to be the first test subject for the experimental procedure. "The interface feels strange but promising," Aylin said, activating the prototype system that had been surgically implanted behind her damaged eyes 3 weeks earlier. "Human sight is different from dragon sight in ways that are difficult to explain. Colors exist that we have no names for, patterns that register as important but carry no meaning in dragon understanding. Marcus watched the readouts as Aylin's cybernetic visual system came online. The implants were more than just artificial eyes. They were a completely new type of sensory interface that translated electromagnetic radiation across a much broader spectrum than normal dragon vision, while also providing data that could be interpreted through dragon bioelectric field processing. "Can you see the crystal formations outside the window?" Marcus asked, gesturing toward the observation deck. Aylin turned her head toward the window, and Marcus could see the faint glow from the cybernetic interfaces as they processed visual information. "I see them, but also more than them. Human technology reveals the electromagnetic patterns within the crystals, the way they channel and focus energy from your star. It is like seeing the songs they sing to the skyfire." Dr. Martinez entered the communication center, carrying a tablet full of medical data and wearing the expression of someone who had just witnessed something unprecedented. "Marcus, Aylin, you need to see this immediately. The neural integration readings are off the charts." She activated the wall display, showing a complex three-dimensional model of Aylin's neural activity. The cybernetic interfaces aren't just providing visual input, they're enhancing your natural bioelectric field processing capabilities. "Aylin, you're seeing in ways that neither humans nor dragons can see naturally." Aylin's head tilted in the gesture that Marcus had learned indicated intense interest. "Explain this enhancement, Dr. Martinez." "The cybernetic components are designed to interface directly with your visual cortex, but your neural structure is fundamentally different from human neural architecture. Instead of simply replacing lost function, the implants are creating entirely new processing pathways. You're developing hybrid sensory capabilities." Marcus leaned forward, studying the neural activity patterns. "What kind of capabilities?" Dr. Martinez highlighted several sections of the neural map. "Pattern recognition beyond anything we've measured in either species. The ability to directly perceive electromagnetic fields, gravitational variations, even quantum field fluctuations. Aylin, you might be developing the ability to sense subspace communication networks, faster than light transmission protocols, maybe even the underlying structure of space-time itself." Aylin was quiet for a long moment, processing this information through both her enhanced senses and her natural dragon wisdom. "This is why the healing was meant to happen," she said finally. "Not just to restore sight to one dragon, but to create new kinds of sight that could benefit both species." The implications were staggering. Human space exploration had always been limited by the need to physically travel to distant locations to gather information. But if dragon bioelectric field sensitivity could be enhanced and integrated with human technology, it might be possible to develop sensing capabilities that could analyze distant star systems, detect habitable planets, even identify other sentient species without the need for physical contact. "We need to contact the Galactic Research Council immediately," Dr. Martinez said. "This isn't just medical treatment, it's the foundation for an entirely new type of science." Marcus activated the long-range communication array, but paused before initiating the transmission. "Aylin, this discovery belongs to you as much as to us. How do you want to proceed?" Aylin's response demonstrated the wisdom that had made her such an effective ambassador for her species. "The discovery belongs to the friendship between our peoples, Marcus. It should be shared as we have learned to share this world, with respect for both human needs and dragon values." Over the following weeks, mining station Kepler 442b became the center of unprecedented scientific collaboration. Researchers from 17 human worlds arrived to study the hybrid technology, while dragon representatives from every major clan came to observe and contribute their own understanding of bioelectric field manipulation. The breakthrough came when Dr. Elena Yates, working with Elder Speaks for many Silver Wing clan, realized that the enhanced sensory capabilities could be used for more than just scientific research. The hybrid technology could serve as a universal translation interface, capable of directly interpreting the neurological basis of communication across different species. We're not just creating better ways to see and hear, Elena explained to the assembled researchers. We're creating better ways to understand. This technology could make it possible for any sentient species to communicate directly with any other sentient species, regardless of their evolutionary background or sensory capabilities. Marcus stood in the observation deck, watching human and dragon researchers working together on problems that would have been impossible for either species to solve alone. The mining equipment had been replaced with research laboratories. The industrial facility had become a center for the kind of scientific cooperation that could reshape galactic civilization. Aylin joined him at the window, her enhanced vision allowing her to perceive details that were invisible to normal sight. "The crystal formations sing differently now," she said. "They respond to the presence of both our peoples working together. The harmony is more complex but more beautiful." "Any regrets?" Marcus asked. "About volunteering for the experimental treatment? About everything that's happened since that night in the storm?" Aylin's laugh translated as a complex harmonic pattern that somehow conveyed both amusement and deep contentment. "Regrets about discovering that the universe is larger and more wonderful than either of our species imagined? Regrets about proving that intelligence and compassion can overcome any barrier? Never." Marcus nodded, remembering that stormy night when he had made the simple choice to help a creature in distress. "It's funny how the smallest actions can have the biggest consequences." "Not small," Aylin corrected gently. "What you did that night was not small, Marcus. You chose to see suffering and respond with kindness, even when it would have been easier and safer to do nothing. That choice changed the course of history for both our species." The latest reports from the Galactic Council indicated that 17 other worlds had requested joint human-dragon research teams to investigate potential applications of the hybrid sensory technology. 3 previously uncontacted species had expressed interest in diplomatic relations after learning about the successful cooperation on Kepler 442b. But more than the scientific discoveries or the diplomatic breakthroughs, what impressed Marcus most was how naturally the 2 species had learned to work together. Human efficiency and dragon wisdom complemented each other in ways that strengthened both approaches. Human technology and dragon bioelectric sensitivity created capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. "Dr. Martinez thinks we might be able to adapt the interface technology for other species," Marcus said. "Imagine being able to give any being the ability to see across all electromagnetic spectrums, to sense gravitational fields, to directly perceive the structure of space-time." Aylin turned her enhanced gaze toward the stars, visible through the observation deck's reinforced windows. "Perhaps that is the true purpose of consciousness, Marcus, not just to survive and reproduce, but to reach across the barriers between different kinds of minds and create new forms of understanding." A chime from the communication system indicated an incoming transmission from Earth. Marcus activated the display, revealing the image of Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of human colonial operations, and coincidentally, Marcus's younger sister. "Marcus, the Galactic Council has just voted to establish the Kepler 442b facility as the first official interspecies research cooperative," Sarah announced. "Congratulations, big brother. You're now the director of humanity's most important scientific facility." Marcus looked around the communication center at the hybrid technology that was reshaping the understanding of consciousness itself, at the dragon and human researchers working side by side on problems that would benefit all sentient life. "I'm honored," he said, "but I have to point out that I'm just the maintenance supervisor who happened to be in the right place at the right time." Aylin's response carried undertones that the translation system interpreted as gentle amusement mixed with profound respect. Marcus Helper in Storm, you are the human who chose to extend your hand to a stranger in the darkness. You are the bridge builder, the one who saw past species differences to recognize shared need and shared worth. That makes you exactly the right choice to guide this cooperation into the future. Admiral Chen's expression softened. The Galactic Council agrees. Marcus, your actions have opened the door to a new era of interspecies cooperation. The hybrid technology developed on your station might revolutionize everything from medical treatment to space exploration to first contact protocols with unknown species. As the transmission ended, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that stormy night 6 months ago. He had started as a maintenance supervisor on a remote mining station, responsible for keeping atmospheric processors running and equipment functioning. Now he was the director of a facility that might reshape galactic civilization, but at its core, his job remained fundamentally the same: identifying problems and finding solutions, maintaining systems that kept everyone safe and healthy, and occasionally extending a helping hand to someone who needed it. "Aylin," he said, "want to take a walk outside? I'd like to see how those crystal formations look through your enhanced vision." Aylin's agreement resonated through multiple communication channels simultaneously, a complex expression of joy that somehow conveyed her excitement about sharing her new way of seeing the world with the friend who had made it possible. As they prepared to venture outside into the afternoon light of an alien sun, Marcus realized that the most important human trait hadn't been their technology or their economic systems or their military capabilities. It had been their willingness to reach across the gap between different kinds of consciousness and offer help, understanding, and friendship. The universe was vast and full of intelligences shaped by evolutionary pressures that humans could barely imagine. But consciousness itself, in all its varied forms, seemed to be built around the same fundamental capacity for recognition, compassion, and cooperation. Marcus smiled as he activated his environmental suit one more time. It had indeed been a very good night's work, and the work was just beginning.